Hi, thanks for watching. Okay, so in this video, I'd like to start switching over to the Sarah Boone case in Florida.
I'm telling you all both. This has changed my life.
This case is very interesting. Although it is a lot different from the Lori Vallow case. I think Lori Vallow is a case of really just homicidal rampage, basically. And Lori Vallow, her level of psychopathy or whatever her psychological problems, just off the charts. Sarah Boone's a little different. And I think for me, this case is more a chance to do some Monday morning quarterbacking. Okay, I think Monday morning quarterbacking is very good in police cases because it helps us improve for future cases, right? You can learn a lot from these cases for the future. I think very similar to the Scott Peterson case, I think the police were too eager to try to get a confession out of Sarah Boone, right?
You left them in there. You did trying to dance around the fact you left them in there.
This is not.
You didn't leave them in there?
It's not cool.
I think they should have slowed down, not try to go so fast in the interrogation. I think if they let the interrogation go over a period of like maybe another day or another few hours, and if they had avoided trying to accuse her of killing Jorge, right? I think that Sarah could have coughed up more information.
And his head's right here.
Mm-hmm.
So going like this, rather than going all the way up, it's like this.
Okay. But then the second thing, similar to the Casey Anthony case, all right, this is a case where I think the strategy of how you charge the case versus how you expect it to plea out, I think there could be some things done differently in the charging of this case. Okay, anybody who's a lawyer in Florida who has any feedback on this, because I also work in Florida criminal defense, right? And so Florida is a state I'm pretty comfortable with. And if anybody sees any problems with what I'm saying, let me know. But I think I have some ideas about how the Sarah Boone case could have been charged, I think, as first-degree homicide. Okay, so to give a little summary on the charges that are pending against Sarah Boone in Florida, let's just kind of go over the facts. Okay, this is an incident from late February 2020, so it's already been more than 4 years, okay, from Winter Park, Florida. That's that's a suburb of Orlando. Okay, where Jorge Torres, okay, a 40-something-year-old Hispanic male, was found dead in a suitcase. Okay, and it's very clear that that his girlfriend, okay, this is Sarah Boone, that she basically maliciously left him in a suitcase, under conditions that aren't quite clear. I wish they were a little more clear. But under conditions where it looks like maybe she threw him down the stairs in the suitcase, or she was messing with him in the suitcase, but he had a crisis where he had trouble breathing.
Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
That's on you.
Sarah, I can't breathe.
It's on you.
And she basically verbally assaulted him, started cussing at him and just left him there, even though he was complaining of having difficulty breathing.
Fuck you.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
Sarah.
Stupid.
Okay, she makes an issue out of whether she intentionally fell asleep. But I think the real issue is why she even left the scene of the suitcase right there and even just left him for any period of time while he was in respiratory distress or felt he had trouble breathing.
You intentionally left him in there and left the room. You went upstairs to a different room.
You intentionally did that?
You did.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking he's going to get out.
Okay, and he didn't?
Obviously not.
And you guys will remember there's like viral videos of like the interrogation of Sarah Boone where she's acting really arrogant. She's acting really like in super denial.
I didn't do that intentionally.
You didn't intentionally flip the bag around?
No, why would I do that?
She's showing extreme manipulation.
I don't know what you want me to tell you. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
So it's almost like a textbook example of somebody who has like a flaming personality disorder, right?
I don't know what or how I can say it. I love George.
Okay, but for those of us who really want to understand the case, I'm a little more concerned with the interviewing techniques, the interrogation techniques, okay? And I think, again, just like the Scott Peterson case, I think the detectives who were interrogating Sarah Boone, I think, again, just like Scott Peterson, they were just so eager to get a confession, okay?
But you went upstairs thinking that he could get himself out, but the video shows
That's
at
what I
no
told
point
you.
can I see his fingers. And
He'll
it
be up
looks
here any
like-
minute.
And then 30 minutes later, he didn't show.
And I really think, a confession is good in many cases. But look, this is a case where somebody was killed under a situation where Sarah Boone was actually acting malicious, right? So who's going to want to admit to a malicious killing, right?
Are you all trying to have me admit that, like, are you trying to have me admit that? Because I will never admit it.
When you have something that serious, I don't think you should always try to go straight for the confession. Okay. I think it's much better just to collect information. Okay. So what I started to pick up and what I was really interested in the interview was they started to get to the question of whether they were upstairs or downstairs when Jorge went into the suitcase. Okay. I think that should have been the focus of this interrogation, not whether they're accusing her, not whether she's going to admit or confess to anything. I think they should have just made her feel very comfortable. I don't think they should have played the cell phone video right away. I think they should have held that for a long time. I think they should have just kept talking to Sarah to see if she could explain whether the initial play with the suitcase started upstairs, and for her to maybe just give a lot of information so that later, if she would say he got into the suitcase downstairs, they could show inconsistencies, right? I think that, to me, the most important thing is to show that she got him into the suitcase while he was upstairs. Okay. That's the main thing for me, because then that would lead to a strong conclusion that she threw him down the stairs in the suitcase, right? But you have to be very clever with a person. You got to put them at ease. You got to make them feel so comfortable that they stop protecting themselves, okay? And maybe by accident, she'll accidentally let it slip that they were upstairs when he got into the suitcase. So that, to me, would have been the game plan, right? Sometimes you have to like huddle before you do like an interrogation. I think these two detectives should have huddled together and say, okay, what's our goal here? Okay, our goal is not to make her feel defensive. Our goal is not to try to get a confession. Okay, today we just want to see if she can admit or give some information that indicates that Jorge got into the suitcase upstairs. And maybe a second goal, okay, maybe another good goal in the huddle before the interrogation would be to agree that we're not going to focus so much on how bad it was for her to go to sleep. Okay, let's not worry about how bad it was that she went to sleep. Let's focus on just leaving the scene. And when I say leaving the scene, I mean leaving the area where the suitcase was after Jorge said, I'm having trouble breathing. Just focusing on that. Just leaving the suitcase there when you knew he had trouble breathing, and just say that, hey, we're not really as... You could lie to her too, right? So the police can say lying. They can say, hey, we're not worried about you going to sleep. Actually, they are worried, but you can just say, we're not so much worried today about whether you went to sleep. We're worried on you just leaving the suitcase, just leaving the room, okay, when you knew, or he said he had trouble breathing. That's all we're concerned about, right? And just kind of focusing on that, because if you leave her too much room to talk about how she fell asleep and kind of taking the intention out of it, you're sort of taking the focus away from the actual danger of leaving a person who's having trouble breathing for any length of time. Okay, to me, that would have been a success, right? And then they could just take a break, maybe take a break for a few hours, let her go to jail, and then maybe the next day, maybe follow up with a few more questions, right? But I don't think the idea of getting a confession was very realistic here.
What does fuck you mean to you?
I get told everything but a white woman, so
Okay.
my intention was not to leave him in there.
That's just my opinion, because I think the potential charges are way too serious.
If somebody's begging, saying, I
But
can't
when you
breathe.
say that, though, but you have to,
Please
y'all
let me out. I can't breathe.
don't know George, though. Like, that, again, I thought it was the boy crying wolf.
Okay, the next issue here is the charging strategy. Okay, and this is where I think the prosecutors and the police, I think they could have worked together to develop a better charging strategy. Okay, I think in a case that is this serious, okay, where you have a person who was killed under conditions where there is malice, okay, this is a malicious killing of some sort, right? I think the detective should have conferred with the state attorney, right, before getting deep into this interrogation, okay? And let me be clear here, okay? I think even if there was a goal to eventually try to get a confession, even if that was a goal, okay, I think they should have allowed at least one interrogation with no agenda to get a confession, okay? There should have been one long form interrogation where it wasn't even on the table to even try to get a confession, right? Just gathering information, right? But if at some point they wanted to make an attempt at a confession, right, I think they should have conferred with the state attorney, right? And I think they should have put together a game plan where they could have put a very serious first-degree charge, like first-degree murder charge, on the table to put her in a position where she would be motivated to confess to a second-degree murder, right? Okay, but how could they have done that, right? And I'm not even 100% sure of this, but for now I'm just playing with a couple ideas, okay? The number one thing I see here is there a potential, okay, that they could have played with the idea that there was a felony murder in the course of a kidnapping, right? Could we construe having Jorge confined into the suitcase, okay? Once this went beyond the point of being just a game between the two, okay? Once she took over and had another plan to sort of torture him, basically, if that could be converted into a kidnapping under Florida law, right? And I say that because under the felony murder doctrine, right, if you end up accidentally killing somebody in the course of another felony, okay, that can be charged as first degree murder, right? So let's just kind of take a look at the elements here real quick. And if anybody from Florida has some feedback on this, please let me know. I'm just brainstorming here, but let's take a look at kidnapping. Okay, and I'll explain why kidnapping is important. Okay, let's first look at the Florida murder statute. So looking at the Florida murder statute, okay, here's the standard form of what we think of as traditional first degree murder. When perpetrated from a premeditated design to affect the death of a person. Okay, clearly that's not what happened. She wasn't premeditating Jorge's death. She was trying to torture him, basically. That's what it appears to be, right? So there's the second option under first degree murder, which is when committed by a person engaged in the perpetration or in the attempt to perpetrate another crime, okay? And then they enumerate these crimes, right? So let's look at the enumerated crimes. All right. Trafficking offense, arson, sexual battery, robbery, burglary, kidnapping. Okay, I'm just putting it on the table. Is there a way we could package the facts of this case so that it could fit the kidnapping elements, right? And then there's also another one, which is aggravated abuse of an elderly person or a disabled adult. There's another possibility. Okay, at some point, if we can prove that she threw him in the suitcase down the stairs, okay, and if at some point it would be reasonable that she would understand that he became disabled in the suitcase, right? If you can make that argument, you can make the argument that maybe this killing occurred while she was committing abuse of a disabled adult. So let's just kind of parse through those things. I'm not saying I'm committed to these. These are things we can rule out. But I'm thinking that if you're trying to start with bargaining with a person to get them to plead down to a second degree murder, you have to start with some colorable theory that puts them in first degree murder, right? Where you can hang over her head the possibility of first degree murder, right? So then you motivate her to plead out to second degree murder, right? I think they could have coordinated with the state attorney to set up at least a plausible theory of first degree murder. And that way she would feel comfortable pleading to second degree murder, you know? And by the way, she's already done enough time. Like a lot of people who are actually convicted of second degree murder, they only do like maybe 4 to 6 years a lot of times. So she's already done the time basically for second degree murder. So, I mean, I'm just saying, you know, I think there's a world in which they could have hung over her like more serious charges and got her to plead to second degree. So anyway, let's look at the elements of kidnapping and abuse of disabled adult and see if we can see the predicates to set up at least a theory for a first degree murder. So here we're looking at the kidnapping statute, right? Okay, and it says the term kidnapping means forcibly, secretly, or by threat, confining, right? Abducting, not an abduction, right? Confining, yes. Or imprisoning, okay? And if you look at other statutes where they talk about imprisoning, basically imprisoning could be confining somebody, kind of like what she's done in this suitcase, right? So it says, but that's not enough. It's not just confining somebody, it's confining somebody with another element. What's the other element? Okay, the element would be to hold for ransom. That's one possibility, okay? Or to commit or facilitate the commission of another felony. I don't know. Or to inflict bodily harm. I'm not sure she had the intent to inflict bodily harm. Maybe she did, but it says also, or to terrorize the victim. Okay. I think from her cell phone video, we can see that she did have an intent to terrorize him. She wanted to sort of torture him. Okay. She wanted to sort of make him suffer. So I think there are the elements of kidnapping. She accomplished a confinement. She ended up confining him in the suitcase. Okay. And I think she did have an intent to terrorize him. So to me, at least to put on the table, you might not win in court, right? But this is a bargaining chip to at least intimidate her to make her want to plead to second degree murder, right? So at least for the purposes of negotiation, for the purposes of an interrogation, I think you could at least put a colorable case, a colorable argument that she satisfied the kidnapping elements, right? And by him dying in the course, because he died in the course of the kidnapping, she would qualify for first degree murder through the felony murder theory, right? Okay, but now let's look at the other option, which is abusing a disabled person, and see if that is even possible. Okay, so here we're looking at Florida statute. This is section 829.102. Okay, and so this is abuse, aggravated abuse of elderly person or disabled adult. Okay, let's just see what it says. It says abuse of an elderly person or disabled adult means, okay, and I'm going to skip over some that don't apply, but it says an intentional act. All right, an intentional act. This is subpart B, okay, or subsection B, whatever. An intentional act that could reasonably be expected, right? Reasonably be expected to result in physical or psychological injury to an elderly person or disabled adult. Okay. Well, in order for this to work, we have to define disabled adult. So let's go to the next part. Okay. This is section 825.101 definitions. Okay. This is the definitions that are relevant to that statute, right? And it says disabled adult means a person 18 years of age or older who suffers from a condition, or skip all that language, right? Or who has one or more physical or mental limitations, okay, that restrict the person's ability to perform normal activities of daily living. Well, after he fell down the stairs, if we can at least get to a plausible argument that she pushed him down the stairs in the suitcase, right? Once he went down the stairs, the question is, would she be on notice? Okay, would a reasonable person be on notice that he now became, that he was now rendered, let's say, that he now falls under the definition of the statute, right? So once he fell down the stairs, would his injury put him into the category of having a physical or mental limitation that would restrict his ability to perform normal duties of daily life? Okay. Now, again, I'm not saying we're going to win the day in court. Okay. But could we at least put this together so we could form at least the threat that she could possibly be, let's say, liable under this abuse of an elderly person or abuse of a disabled adult statute, right? Could we at least form the argument so that we could present it to her in the interrogation, right? To put her in fear that she could be facing first-degree murder, right? Or even if she lawyers up, right? Even if she lawyers up, even so a lawyer would think, well, shoot, we could probably beat this in court, but that's a serious charge. Even the lawyer will say, you're probably better off just pleading to second-degree murder because you'll do maximum maybe 4 to 6 years, or I'll get you a good deal, whatever. At least put her in a position where at least it would be attractive to her to plea out to second-degree murder. So anyway, I'm going to do more videos on this case, but I just kind of wanted to throw a couple ideas out so that people can start brainstorming, and also so there can be feedback, right? So I could do maybe a part 2, a part 3, a part 4. And if anybody who works in Florida who has an idea that maybe the ideas I just put out are not realistic, let me know, and I can kind of modify, and we can sort of continue brainstorming in the next part of this video series.
Oh, you said you would never put your son in a suitcase. You would only put George in there.
No, George got in a suitcase.
And you zipped it up.
I'm leaving it like this, please. I'm leaving it like this. I did not intentionally do this. No malicious content or effort was towards this.
But anyway, appreciate your patience, and thanks for watching.